In case you missed it, here's Dave and Cheryl's favorite moments of the week.
Last week away in Mexico, first time at this beautiful resort, by the way. So it's like 4 complexes in one, so it's massive, and you can kind of go around from one to the other. Met people from all over the world. Never realized how universal Mexico is to bring people in from everywhere. UK, parts of South America. You had people from all across Canada. Met people from BC, PEI, Newfoundland, Nova Scotia, like all over the place.
And where were you in Mexico again?
We were near Cancun.
Okay.
So that's where we were. And so one of the days we were hanging out and we met this whole gang from Nova Scotia. And we were hanging out with them. Great group of people. Bunch of younger kids that were there with their parents. When I say younger kids, like in their early 20s.
Okay.
Young to me. And they were hanging out with their parents and their grandmother, who had paid for a lot of them to go down. And so we were having a good time. And suddenly, there's a guy from Australia that's in the mix. And he starts telling me, specifically, this whole story of his life. So he starts telling me about how he's a retired pilot.
Okay, so he's an older guy.
I would guess 40s. Kind of looked like Daniel Craig a little bit.
Okay.
Very commanding when he told the story.
Mm-hmm.
So he's going on about how he got into selling houses and flipping them and doing all of that, making a lot of money. Then he had decided to build a small resort on an island. And he's telling me this whole story about this resort, all the various things that went down with it and what was going on. And then eventually he sold this resort, allegedly, to a gang in Australia, which was its own separate story of things that happened. And it was almost like I couldn't get away from the story. Let me premise this by saying he wasn't wearing swim trunks in the pool. He had underwear on. In hindsight, it was just like boxer briefs. And I'm like, okay, maybe he forgot trunks. Someone pointed that out after
Or
the fact.
maybe they lost his luggage or was delayed,
Sure. Okay. Any of that's possible. So as he's going on and on, I'm thinking, wow, your life story could be on TLC. It sounds like one of those things that are just wild. Like he's talking about going through flooding on this island and the damage that was done. And then there was a big fire next door and it almost caught his place on fire. And then eventually selling it to this, gang or whatnot out of Australia that took it over and all the things that happened with that. And I said to my wife after, like, he could be, we went for lunch at that point. We were like, okay, because I couldn't get away. He was going and going and going. So much so I think I felt like I was starting to burn a little bit. And finally my wife came over and said, we should get some lunch. I'm like, yeah. So I said to her, like, it's so detailed. Either it's not true or he's some eccentric millionaire that just kind of goes around to different places. Mm-hmm. So then he's hanging out with a group from Nova Scotia.
Okay.
And so one of the guys in that group said afterwards, he called him out on a couple of things that he felt didn't add up. Okay, fine. You fast forward a little bit into the evening. We're going for dinner near where we were staying, right around the corner from where our rooms were. And it's a steakhouse. And who shows up but the guy from Australia?
Okay.
He gets into it with some of the young guys from Nova Scotia.
Because they kind of called him out on his BS.
I think that's what happened. And then it turned physical. Nova Scotia, I think one of the Nova Scotia guys either pushed him or knocked him down or something. Guy from Australia takes off. He somehow runs away from them, but runs into their grandmother, who takes pity on him and lets him into her room. So now they're all going after him because I guess he led her to believe that there was somebody chasing him. And so now they're banging on the door, like, let us in. He wouldn't let them in. He locked the door. Mexican police and federales show up. All of this is happening right around the corner from where we were staying. So then he panics, jumps off a second floor balcony.
What?
Down to the ground, takes off running. The young guys thought he had broken his arm on the way down. Apparently he didn't. He might have hurt
Maybe
his arm.
sprained it or something.
They find him in the lobby. And this is now all coming to me from various, and I confirmed it with several different
after
groups
dinner.
after the fact,
Okay.
right? That he was arrested and people saw him taken out in handcuffs. Didn't have a band to be there. Like, didn't have, like, a wristband for any of the resorts to be in that spot.
So did he sneak in?
It came to be the thought that he had snuck onto this. And how do you question anyone? If someone's walking around with some drinks or a plate from the buffet, you're going to think they belong there, right? Mm-hmm. And I do recall he did have like a bracelet on that looked dark, which would match one of the colors of one of the resorts. So you don't question anything,
Yeah,
right?
because you said there was like 4 different sort of resorts all in one. So
spot.
each place had their own color.
All right,
over a
so
span.
thinks the story ends there. No, there's a bit more. All right, just to finish off the story, this guy's taken out in handcuffs. We get that from a few different people. Okay, the police, military, they've taken him away. Okay, fast forward to the next day, we go to the sports bar to watch the Leafs game. Ended up hanging out with this group from PEI. The topic of the Australian guy comes up because he's the talk of the entire resort at that point, right? And the guy from PEI, one of them says, actually, I work in the Coast Guard. And he said, I know who you're talking about because I saw him here today. And I'm like, what? And so how did he get back on? Allegedly paid a fine and then was released. So he said he spun this same tale to this guy, but he called him out because of working in the Coast Guard on some of the stuff with regards to being a pilot that he said, again, the details didn't add up. He said, yeah, maybe the training's a bit different, but he said some of the stuff I was like, no, this isn't possible, right? So he said to the guy, you're in the pool in underwear. Do you want a pair of board shorts? I have an extra pair of board shorts. The guy says, yeah. And he tells him his size. He said, but then they had started having some drinks. And he forgot about it. He said the guy got angry at him that he didn't have the shorts for him. But then someone started yelling about, oh, hey, the Aussie guy's back. Well, he was trying to shh. Security surrounded the pool, took him out, and kicked him off again. So my only conclusion is that he's a grifter or a con man and just goes from resort to resort and goes about it that way and goes from place to place. Again, allegedly. I don't know his story 100%. He could be an eccentric person that's got money and does this, but my feeling is he gets and gone to these places and befriends people and either gets money from them.
Found a loophole, knew how to sneak onto the resort because clearly he got back in somehow.
Well, apparently the beaches are public access.
Oh.
So that's what someone else was telling us. It might have been the guy from PEI.
He got on the beach somewhere else and then was able to walk in.
And walk back on again. So what an absolutely wild story from our time down in Mexico. Do you have an emergency kit in your vehicle?
I do, although I think I took the water bottle out of it a few years ago and the granola bars because they were, totally stale at that point.
Well, it's good to have that, right? And just in case you get stranded somewhere, things happen. They say, first aid basics, water, like you mentioned, granola bars, maybe a flare, maybe a good bottle of wine, too.
Well, that's what a 48-year-old woman by the name of Lillian used to survive. She was out for a short drive recently, but made a wrong turn, and her vehicle got stuck in the mud in an area of dense bush. And she wasn't able to hike out on her own because she's got health issues. So she decided the best thing to do was to stay with the car. So she did have a few snacks and sweets to eat, but no water. But she did have a bottle of wine. She's not a drinker, though. The wine was actually a gift she had bought to her mom. I think she was on her way there to go and say hi and bring her the wine.
Yeah, she ended up being stranded for 5 days, and she survived on those snacks and that one bottle of wine before she was finally rescued. It was getting pretty dire, though. She thought she wasn't going to make it.
So when they discovered her, though, she was put in hospital for dehydration, but has since been released. She didn't say what kind of wine it was that she used to survive, if it was like a Riesling or a Pinot Grigio.
I wonder what would be better, red or white in a situation like that. I feel like white would be. Isn't red like kind of dry?
Yes, it
would make you thirstier.
Like, is it a Cabernet? Like, are we getting like a really dry red?
A fruity wine maybe too? I don't know, but you'd think it actually would dehydrate you more, but I guess she rationed it out enough.
That it wasn't like she was drinking. I wonder if she was just taking like sips out of the cap.
Just enough to get by and survive. With every generation, there seems to be phrases, terms, words you might hear. Like if you think of the 60s, right, you think groovy, right on, and that kind of stuff, right? Well, someone tested some Gen Zers in their mid-20s and gave them a bunch of old school sayings to see if they knew what they meant or not.
Over 40% of them say, yeah, I sometimes hear older people use these phrases, but they make no sense to me. So here is a list of phrases that they are least likely to know, like beating a dead horse. Of course, means wasting time or continuing to debate something that's already settled.
Rule of thumb, general guideline on how to do something.
Back to the salt mines. They don't know that means you got to go back to work, especially if you have a demanding boss. They'll just quit instead.
I wonder if the same thing applies with that old commercial that so many of us have. Time to make the donuts, right? I guess you're going off to work.
Was it Dunkin'?
I think it might have been, right? It was a U.S. one, I think. Taking the bull by the horns, dealing with a difficult situation head on. Because you never want to grab a bull by the horns, ever.
You don't. You don't cut the mustard. I don't know if I've ever really heard anyone use this phrase.
Doesn't cut the mustard.
It means you're not good enough for meeting expectations.
Oh, what's your beef? Why are you upset? Why do you disagree?
Apparently Gen Z, they don't know the phrase, let sleeping dogs lie. Like, don't interfere in a situation.
Mm-hmm. Burning the midnight oil, staying up late, working away, because we don't use oil candles. That would be why, maybe. So what would you say now instead?
I was just thinking about that.
Raising the electricity bill because you're up late?
Yeah, but the power, is usually cheaper. So... the different, the different times.
Throwing in the towel to give up or admitting defeat. It's an old boxing term.
Yeah.
That's where that came from.
And biting the bullet, dealing with something tough that you've been avoiding.
I guess apparently that comes from patients way back when, biting down on something hard to deal with the pain of surgery before anesthesia was a thing.
Oh.
So you bite the bullet.
Now, what about phrases that the younger generation are using that we don't understand? We also have a list of those too.
Mm-hmm.
So, dank. I thought dank would be like dark and musty.
Like a musty basement.
Yes.
Kind of dank.
You're like, yeah, that's a dank basement. No, apparently it means excellent or very high quality. The complete opposite of a dank basement.
Salty. I've heard this one used. It means jealous, describing how, other people might feel if their team lost in the playoffs.
Oh, you're just salty.
You're just salty.
Bougie. I've heard this one before, something that's very fancy. It's very bougie.
Isn't that in the Walker Hayes song Fancy Like? Doesn't he use the word bougie in that song? Bougie like natty or something about the beer? I think he does use that. I think so. Look that up. Living rent-free describes something you obsess over.
Oh, living in your head rent-free.
Mm-hmm. And the other one on this list is ghosting. Now, I think that term has been used a bit more because in dating terms, right?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody that disappears.
Oh, ghosted me. Or friends who ghost you. Or weren't we talking about people selling stuff online and then you get ghosted by someone's like... You're like, are you still interested? They'll be like, is this still available? You're like, yes. And then you never hear from them again.
Oh, we got ghosted when we were in Mexico. So we went over to this one pool the one day, just kind of hang out a little bit. And we met this young couple from the GTA. Really vibe with them right away. Like, he was into sports and, my wife and this girl got along. And they were probably mid-20s, I think, maybe even a year or two younger than our youngest. And then, so they exchanged information, my wife and she did, and they had been texting back and forth, and then we never heard from them the rest of the week. And they were on our flight. We saw them go by in the plane. It was like, oh, I think they kind of woke up the next day and was like, were we hanging out with grandparents? So we were ghosted.
I'll admit, you grandparents are fun, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I guess in that way, we were dank is bad, right?
Dave, you and your wife just didn't have the riz.
Didn't have the riz. What was that?
Charisma.
Oh, enough riz to get by.
If you don't have any riz, or you have too much riz.
And it made us a little salty. A lot of talk lately about artificial intelligence. Chat GTP is, one of the things being thrown around. Mm-hmm. There's been instances where university papers are being written by students, and now someone had to create a separate thing to look at those to see if it was written by a human or written by computer. Well, check this out, what's happening now.
So we've got a couple of stories when it comes to AI. A 23-year-old influencer by the name of Karen Marjorie. She's got over 1.8 million followers on Snapchat, and she's now charging people $1 a minute, not to talk to her, but to talk to an AI version of her. It's a chatbot called Karen AI, and she's now billing it as a, quote, virtual girlfriend.
She says over 2,000 hours of coding went into making it sound just like her, and even has her personality, she says. She claims it feels like talking to the actual person. Her website for it claims that she's the first influencer to do this, but she probably won't be the last because she's already making a lot of money on it.
So she launched a beta version earlier this month, already has more than 1,000 paying customers. And she said in the first week, she made over $70,000.
What?
And she thinks it could eventually bring in about $5 million a month.
Okay, so we need Cheryl AI and Dave AI.
Dave and Cheryl in the morning AI. But I don't know if I want that, because in this second story about artificial intelligence, I think a lot of people might remember, was it a few weeks ago? There was a song that dropped on Spotify that was Drake and The Weeknd, and turns out it was done by artificial intelligence.
Well, Spotify is now cracking down on those non-human produced pieces of music, purging tens of thousands of tracks from Boomy, a startup that encourages people to, quote, unleash their creativity through AI-powered music.
So Spotify actually removed about 7% of all the songs that was uploaded by this Boomy. A source close to the situation says that Spotify had raised suspicions over artificially boosted stream counts on their songs because they think there's bots masquerading as human listeners that are driving up the airplays, so then they get more royalties back to them.
Just scary in some ways. Now, Boomy insists it's against any type of manipulation or artificial streaming, and said it's working with Spotify to have their inventory restored. We're living in a wild world, aren't we?
It's kind of scary how quickly artificial intelligence and AI, these chat GTP things, have like the gains that it's made in the last year or so.
Businesses talking about having AI answer phones, interact with people in the public at drive-thrus and things like that, to the point of, where are we all going to work if the robots take over? I've always said, I always figured I would embrace new technology. I would be like all about it. Now I'm like, no, burn it all. Burn the robots. I'll be the one in the crowd in those like post-apocalyptic movies leading the movement against the robots. But we live in very interesting and scary times, do we not? I mean, they can take videos of you now and make it look like you're doing things.
Yeah, deep fakes, they call them.
Scary times, my friends. It's National Eat What You Want Day. Isn't that every day? I mean, if you're an adult, there's literally no rules. You can really eat whatever you want.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm pretty sure I ate, some fast food the other day, and I did not feel very great afterwards, because it's not something I do on a regular basis. Eating vegetables, you hit a point in your life where you're like, you voluntarily pick the healthier option because you don't want to feel like trash. Vegetables.
Well, a recent poll found that if we didn't have to worry about our health, the top foods we'd eat more often are pizza, pasta, burgers, and ice cream. That sounds about right. So they did this massive study and survey, over 50,000 people, and here's the top 10 choices. So which one would you want to eat if you could choose? Sandwich or burger?
Burger.
60% said burger. Pizza or fries?
Pizza.
We thought it might be a bit closer, but 63% said pizza.
Oh, definitely pizza.
Yeah, I could eat pizza every day. Pepperoni pizza or plain cheese?
Oh, pepperoni.
Yeah, it tied actually 50%.
Did they ask like 6-year-olds? Because my nephews, they're all about the cheese pizza.
The kid from Home Alone, remember? He didn't get a
small
cheese pizza.
They would order me a small cheese pizza.
Waffles or pancakes?
It depends on my mood. Because waffles, they're still fluffy inside, but you get sort of that
crispness.
But then sometimes I'm like, no, I'm in the mood for pancakes.
I do like a good waffle. So that one actually split, 50-50 tie. Cake or cupcakes?
It's the same thing.
Well, they're smaller. Smaller versions.
All I can think is you're holding up. You need to tell corporate what the difference is. They're the same photo.
What do you think? Like a big piece of cake, or do you want a cupcake?
I don't know. It depends, because then you can also get into the debate with cake of, do you want a quarter piece, a middle piece? Right?
I'm cupcakes. I'm about the cupcakes more.
It depends how much. It depends on the frosting, I would say, too. Because sometimes there can be too much frosting on a cupcake.
Yes. So 53% said cake. So tacos or hot dogs?
Oh, tacos all the way.
Really? How's that even a discussion? Would you like a delicious taco you can fill with whatever and fantastic toppings, or a dirty wiener that we just boiled in a bunch of water? No.
What if you do it on a bonfire or a barbecue?
It's a little bit better.
It's a little better. Also, I would say in this, did they ask 6-year-old boys if they wanted a taco or a hot dog?
Can you get, is it a menu item? Can you go to a sit-down restaurant and say, can I have a boiled wiener, please? I just, like, in a bun?
Maybe not boiled.
No, just like that. Apples or oranges?
Oh, apples.
Apples.
I guess it depends on the variety, though. If you're giving me a red delicious, I'll be like, no, give me the orange instead.
Well, I mean, when you talk oranges, what about those small ones that come out around
Clementines?
Christmas? Yeah.
Oh, I love those.
Yes. Small, as long as they don't have seeds. Is that not one of the big disappointments of life, much like raisins posing as chocolate chips, is that you get one of those clementines and there's not supposed to be seeds.
You bite into it and you're like, yeah. Spitting them out.
That's exactly what we do. Broccoli or cauliflower? Neither? Is that an option? I don't see neither on
I
this
like
list.
both. I think I
do.
might go with cauliflower.
78% said broccoli over cauliflower. Ice cream or popsicles?
Ice cream.
87% ice cream. Although, a good popsicle in the summertime, right? Always a good thing.
Oh, yeah.
You think about when you were a kid, all the great flavors there was. You got to break them, right? You get those two.
Remember you put them on the edge of the counter and try to snap it in half?
So that it wouldn't break, the top part. How much disappointment was that when the top part broke off?
Oh, it always broke, and you're like, son of a... Come on.
Do they sell them like that anymore? Because it feels like the last time I bought them for the kids, they were in individual little packages.
You
now.
can get them. I think they're called like ice lollies or something.
Ice lollies.
Yeah, I've seen them from... I think Chapman's has them.
Maybe they can't use the word
I think I
popsicles.
bought them for my nephews.
Vanilla ice cream or chocolate?
Oh, chocolate.
So 53% said vanilla. 47% said
Now,
chocolate.
if we're doing like a sundae and I'm putting toppings on it, I'm probably going to go vanilla. But if it's just ice cream, I'm going to go with chocolate. I'll tell you...
whatever we want. Why can't we have both?
Yeah, I want one scoop of each. A checkerboard. My nephews, we keep buying checkerboard ice cream for them, and they love it, where it's checkered, the vanilla and chocolate in it.
Oh,
you slice it. Do you remember those?
Yeah.
We still have them. Still awesome.
It's just like that cake you used to keep in the freezer when you were a kid, and your mom always had like one of those.
Vienna.
There was a certain cake.
Something like that.
I just
Isn't it called
remember
something
there was
with a
that,
V?
and there was this roll that had like raspberry in the middle of it, and my mom always had that in case company came. You couldn't eat it. You couldn't touch it. Don't touch that. It's for company. And then I think it would get to the point where there was no company, and then we'd get it before it went bad.
Venetta. Vienetta ice cream. It was like a cake, like a log cake.
Mm-hmm. I remember that, and I remember the other one, the raspberry roll type one. We always had that for special company. Though the special company didn't show up, and I'd be waiting. What's the best before date? Maybe we can have a slice. Mother's Day on Sunday, but if you haven't gotten a reservation for, brunch, breakfast, lunch, good luck with that at this point. And I mean, money might be tight. I mean, for a lot of us, it is these days. Well, we've got some ways that you can still impress your mom on Mother's Day and for free.
I mean, yeah, I was going to say, best of all, FREE, free. Be on time. And not even be on time, be a little bit early. If you're going to your mom's house, or if you're going to be taking her somewhere, be a little bit early.
Sign your Mother's Day card with more than just your name. If you're not great with words, they say, get some help. Even use ChatGTP. That's something that could help you out to write out a heartfelt note.
If your mom isn't the most, technologically inclined, take her phone and her computer and just make sure that everything is up to date. Or if maybe she lives alone, walk around the house and see if there's any sort of quick repairs that you can easily do, or something that maybe you can call about on Monday and have someone come over and fix it for her.
Tell her about how you've used at least one piece of advice she's given you over the years. Maybe you were a bit of a rebellious teen, and you can turn that around now years later, and I can tell you that your mom will love it.
And this last one I love. It says, just ask her about what her life was like before you were born. I mean, I think a lot of times we only ever think about our parents as our parents. You don't really think about at some point that they might have been a rebellious teenager too.
You see old photos of your parents, you're like, what? What? I mean, when I found out my dad used to smoke cigarettes and had an Indian motorcycle, I'm like, what? He did? He sold that so that they could build their house way back when. A couple of others, take out the garbage as you're leaving. Maybe play a board game with your mom. Watch, her favorite show together and just sit down, spend some time together.
If you know that she has a favorite movie, maybe actually go out and purchase it on DVD for her so that she has and can watch it whenever she wants.
So just a few free ideas, but how about moms? What do moms really want for Mother's Day?
And now, what moms really want for Mother's Day.
I would love a bottle of wine the size of my leg.
I want to go home and have one good night's sleep. That's it.
How about a thank you every once in a while? 2 words.
Fat burning cake. How does this not exist?
And sleeping pills for toddlers. Come on, FDA. It's a no-brainer.
How about cleaning the house?
And some peace and quiet. I would like Gwyneth Paltrow to get "I'm better than you" tattooed on her forehead. It's the obvious next step, no?
Oh, hell yeah.
How about a foot rub that lasts more than a minute and a half? Why even offer?
I want the Victoria's Secret models to all gain 75 pounds.
This has been what moms really want for Mother's Day.
You've been listening to Dave and Cheryl's favorite moments of the week.